Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Dark Sage Walker, and I am finally getting around to doing the Fueled Berserk Basic Arcana combo tier list. Say that 3 times fast. So, the rules for the Basic Arcana Fueled Berserk, I'm just going to shorten it. The rules for the Fueled Berserk combo tier list are going to be the same as they were for the basic tier list. We're looking at these kind of as they exist outside of anything else, so this is not taking into account things like the candies or the evening gloves or silver spinning top, but just keep in mind that those would make any of these combos better. So even if we do look at them for sure, we are not looking at them as they exist just in general. We're going to, because they would affect any of these evenly, so there's no sense in going out of our way to mention them for any specific combo. Make sense? Cool. The other thing I'm going to, of course, mention is that I did actually use all of these combos, so how I've ranked them is based upon my experiences with them. So if you disagree with any of that, this is a good time to have a discussion. The last disclaimer I'm going to put up before we begin is actually a twofold one. One, once again, the tier maker seems to have a problem displaying Volt Disc, so I'll just be adding that into a title. And two, I don't know what I was thinking, but I think I have the wrong little thumbnail for Chaos Crush or Chaos Crusher. But whatever the case may be, you guys know which one it is. It's the one in between Chaos Reaper and Earth Knuckles, and we'll know which one it is. I'm not gonna go back and reselect all of the images that I'm using for this. We all know what they are and what it means, so I think we'll be okay. All right. Otherwise, any other disclaimer that we have could be taken care of from the other tier list. It's all the same stuff, and I think today we are going to be starting, and we're going to be going through it in order of element, mostly because that keeps things nice and easy. And we're going to be starting with fire, and the first one we're going to be looking at is Flame Strike. Now, we've already gone over the stats of Flame Strike. You've got 8/8/16 or 8/8/32. So how exactly does a Charge Arcana work with Fueled Berserk? So what'll happen is it'll just do the basic Arcana, it'll do the basic combo over and over again. So your charge attack is essentially relegated to when you're not using Fueled Berserk. So this keeps things nice and simple, and what it does for the Charge Arcanas is essentially gives them 2 modes. Full-on offense, or more control. So the versatility of that is something that I already like. But now let's look at the idea that while you're doing this, you have a decent amount of mobility. The damage is pretty nice, as you're getting 8/8/16 for every cycle, and since it's removing frame delays, there you go. You're getting around low to mid 200s for just a full-on onslaught. Now, in actual practice, it's hard to get that on a 3rd tier or higher boss. But if you have something like, say, the Electrifying Smock or Anchor of Burden, you can use that increased stun time to your advantage. So the damage is solid, but of course we know that there are going to be better damage numbers. But you also have the mobility while you're using it. And it's not the best mobility of any of them, but it's good mobility, and there's nothing wrong with that. So where would I land this one? I would say this lands on kind of the mid to low end of the A tier. It's certainly not bad, and it'll do a good job of taking care of mooks. Plus, when Fueled Berserk isn't up, you've got the charged attack to go right along with it. It just makes for a lovely little cocktail of control, even if it is sometimes a little difficult to remember all of that. All right, next up, we're going to be looking at Fiery Yo-Yo. This is one of my personal favorites, of course, and you get your damage in essentially every yo-yo does 6. So, and the last one sends out 2, so it's 6, 6, 12. But of course, that always happens twice, so it's hard to get the last one to hit consistently, but yeah, you've got really good damage coming out of this. You've essentially got 12, 12, 24 if you do it right. Now, what happens when you use Fueled Berserk is that all just goes nuts. Now, we're going to try it again on this one. And there you go. It's a beautiful amount of damage, too. And again, you're not necessarily going to get that at all times, but remember that this is just potential we're talking about. Now, the downside is that you have no mobility while using this, but when it's upgraded, you have a much greater full damage range. So, otherwise it maintains all of the properties that it always has, it just does them faster. But the idea that it doesn't allow you to move does knock a few points off. So I don't think I can necessarily put it in A rank, S rank, because one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that there's a bit of an opportunity cost that you may or may not be losing out on by putting on Fueled Berserk instead of another arcana. And the sorts of things that you lose out on with Fiery Yo-Yo is other things that act as much more interesting combo linkers instead of making just the combo itself. That doesn't mean it's bad, and in fact it can synergize quite well with things like Caddy's Cotton Candy, but I'm not necessarily using that as part of the ranking. That having been said, you've got a wonderful damage potential with this, and it is still quite controlling, so I would put it above Flame Strike, but not necessarily an S tier like it is when you use it by itself. By itself, you can also use things like Fading Petal or Aqua Vortex to create the oh-so-beloved Ultra Combo setup that I like so much. Certainly still not bad, but there's better options, and we'll be getting to them. Alright, next up on the list is Flame Cross. I talked about Flame Cross before, obviously, like I did with all of them. And what we have here is just kind of this straight line attack. Now, the base combo does 30, because as you can see for yourself, it's doing 6, 6, 18, barring critical hits, of course. So what happens when you put Fueled Berserk to that is that you just get it a lot faster. Now this is one where, and to be fair, you can clearly see that the damage potential is greater than that of Flame Strike, but what I think is going to put it below Flame Strike is 1, the idea that you can't move, and 2, the idea that your knockback is pushing the target slowly further away from yourself. And of course, it's impossible to get away from the simple fact that this has a very narrow strike zone. So even though you're going nuts, you're just going nuts with it. It still is. There's still no real way to get around that problem. So in the end, I say Flame Cross. I mean, it doesn't really differ much from having this without Fueled Berserk. As of right now, I'm gonna put it in low B with the right reserve to lower it down to C. The damage is good, but the narrow hitboxes aren't helping it. Neither is the idea that if you cast it up against a wall, I'm going to show you this real quick, you actually lose out on some of the range because one of the crosses will just hit the wall instead of going outwards. So, yeah, Fueled Berserk doesn't change that very much, and the cost that you're paying to use Fueled Berserk instead of another standard is a little too high. And this wasn't necessarily a super strong basic to begin with. So we'll put it down. I'll put it down there. But again, I still reserve the right to move it back up to that B rank if I so decide. This is one where I don't think it's necessarily awful, but it's certainly not good either. Alright, next up we have Bouncing Blaze. Bouncing Blaze is one that I personally really liked, even though I didn't necessarily rate it like best of the best. It is still a personal favorite. I mean, how do you say no to just bringing a Fire Flower into Lenova? So we've already discussed this one. It's basically just 3 hits at 12 damage apiece. It's a nice long-range projectile. It's good for control. So how does Fueled Berserk add on to that? You basically just throw a lot of fireballs at once. But as you can see, you're not necessarily getting a ton of damage out of that. Yeah, the damage potential is low. You get no movement while you're using this, so holding yourself even more still by using Fueled Berserk is just a bad choice. And you're not getting a lot of damage out of it in comparison to just using this with some other standard. Like something that pairs well with its range, or something that just allows even more damage at range. So you're giving up some control or even more range damage, or damage in general. But you could be getting with that as an example. To add on something that is being essentially overshadowed by its own knockback. So this is honestly one that even though I love Bouncing Blaze, I do feel as though Bouncing Blaze works better by itself and not with Fueled Berserk. So this is not indicative of Bouncing Blaze in general, remember. This is indicative of Bouncing Blaze plus Fueled Berserk. And honestly, I gotta put it down here. I'm sorry, Bouncing Blaze, or rather Fueled Berserk, but this is an L for you. You take something that I rate in high A by itself and push it all the way down there. That's a shame. That's a real shame. Alright, so we've already seen our first D rating, but will we continue to see more? Spoiler alert, yes. Yes, you will. And now we move on. Alright, next up we move on to the Wind Element, and we're going to start with the most basic of basics, the Wind Slash. Now, this one I actually rated pretty okay. Like, I don't think I rated it over a B in the original tier list, but I could be wrong about that. But basically, you've just got a nice concise slash that goes with it, that on combo goes 8, 10, 12. The knockback is light, and it's also pretty easy to see where you're hitting. So, what do you get when you add on Fueled Berserk? As you can see, the damage potential is pretty decent. But if we upgrade it... See, now we're getting those secondary slashes that take it from most basic of basics to something very interesting. And now you've got a basic combo that does 40. Now you've got a much greater looking damage potential, plus the burn effect that an upgraded Fueled Berserk can lend into furthering the combo damage. Not to mention that the greater range of the sub slashes adds on more control. You've got good mobility while you're doing this. And keep in mind, if you're using this combo, you're probably also pairing it with Dark Katana, which you've got a lot of critical hits coming out of all of this. This one, even though it's like range is obviously its weak point, but because you're combining really fast attacks and at least some mobility with kind of low knockback and high combo potential, you've actually got something really strong here. And I can't oversell how much I was surprised by this when I tried it out. So we're gonna put that there. Wind Slash is a very solid Fueled Berserk combo piece, and I think it definitely needs to be tried out. Enhance Wind Slash, pick up the Dark Katana, go combo crazy, you'll see those damage numbers fly. Really impressive. And again, highly recommend. Next up is Severing Slash. Now, I've gone over this before, and Severing Slash is always really questionable for me, because what you have to do is essentially line it up so that you're hitting with all of these like little all of the little wind claws. So it's not necessarily weak, but it does lead to some potential inconsistency. But of course, this is also a charged arcana, so you've got that when you're not trying to use Fueled Berserk. And you've got damage numbers hitting the low to mid 50s when you use that. So what happens when you Fueled Berserk it? Well, first of all, it's highly mobile. Like, this is a great example of a movement arcana. But how well does that translate? As you can see, because of the inconsistency, the numbers are just a little shady, it has to be said. Your mobility is great, so you can use this to kind of skirt around the battlefield and lay out a little bit of damage to everybody. And then when the Fueled Berserk is no longer up, you've got the charge. So again, versatility counts for something, mobility counts for something. Damage and consistency, however, are still an issue with Severing Slash. So even though I like that it actually does full count as mobility, it's really hard to get anything out of either the soccer cleats or the jumper cables with this. And it ends up falling into a very similar niche that Wind Slash falls into. It's just that Wind Slash does it so much better. But it's not horrible. I would put it down here. Like, you're not necessarily going an awful direction when you combine this with Fueled Berserk, but you could also be doing a lot better. Opportunity cost-wise, you're probably better off putting in something controlling or something that can really make use of the melee or movement typing. Maybe try out, I don't know. I would probably pair up Blazing Vault with it. That way you can leap into combat and then just go full Weapon X. But with Fueled Berserk, I would say it's not a hard pass, but you could definitely be doing better. Alright, now we have Perforating Jet. Perforating Jet is something that I... Like, it falls into this strange category for me where I want to like it. Like, I want to find a way to make Perforating Jet worthwhile. I just have not had any luck doing that. And keep in mind, you're looking at it as it is enhanced. So, one combo will roughly net you in the kind of mid-30s range, it looks like, because it's realistically hitting 3, 4, 5. So it should be 9, 12, 15, which would put you in about the 37 range. As you can see, we're not quite getting there. So what happens when you put on Fueled Berserk is that you just get all of that on steroids. And as you can see, the damage potential looks good, but you're once again combining narrow hitboxes with low damage per hit, and because Perforating Jet is so... Like, it's a little wishy-washy. Your damage numbers are going to vary greatly, even if you're off by just a tiny amount. I don't know how that happened, by the way. I bumped my controller into something. See, you have no movement while you're doing this, so you're just hoping that the enemies can't reach you while you're doing that. That's not a reliable thing to say, as even at level 2, when Lancers can start jumping, let alone level 3, and especially when the elemental enemies start getting really upgraded. Like, I've really been trying hard to go to bat for Perforating Jet, but every time I try it, it ends up letting me down. So this has a kind of the same problem as Flame Cross, but worse, because all of the extra hits don't really ever line up. So it just ends up being overwhelming in many different areas. Like, and it's a shame. I really want to like Perforating Jet, but there just aren't as many critical hit synergies out there for missile weapons as there are for melee. Then you combine that with the idea that the damage on Perforating Jet is rather inconsistent, because you're hardly ever going to be hitting with all of those little air lancets, and it just ends up adding up to disappointment. Like, I think you can still get more out of this than you can Bouncing Blaze, but oof, no, it's not good. Again, if you're going to run Perforating Jet, you're probably better off running something that can be a heavy hitter for it. Because Perforating Jet in and of itself is almost more the control piece than it is the damage piece, and that's a real shame coming from a basic, because you need your basic to do some heavy lifting for you, because it's one of the only things that's not going to go on cooldown. Or in fact, it is the only thing that isn't going to go on cooldown unless you're using Chaotic Rift, and as you well know, Chaotic Rift has no offensive application by itself. I don't know, I could spend a long time talking about Perforating Jet, but I think I would rather just move on to the next Arcana. It's not as disappointing with Fueled Berserk as Bouncing Blaze, but yeah, it hurts my heart. Like I said, I've really been trying hard to get Perforating Jet to work. I just can't do it. So maybe someone else has some ideas about it, but I don't know. I'm done trying to defend it right now. Alright, last for the air element is Air Spinner. Now keep in mind, you are looking at it as it is enhanced, but if it were unenhanced, you would take away one of those air discs. Now, the obvious strengths of Air Spinner are that it hits frequently for good damage, and it does so in a full 360. So your base damage is at about the 46 range, and that's really impressive. Now, what's going to happen when you add on Fueled Berserk is that you're going to still get all of that, but you're going to get it in a mobile package. As you can see, because it's a close range attack, you're also getting the initial fire burst from Fueled Berserk added onto it, so you're kind of getting the full package when you use it that way. So your damage potential can be pretty high, but because you can move while you're activating it, albeit not by much, but you can push yourself into enemy range with it, or use the mild movement to dodge an arrow or something along those lines. It's not the most likely thing, but at least it's a possibility. Now, this is a combo piece where, again, I do think that the basic by itself outshines the combo with Fueled Berserk, but there's no denying that comboing it with Fueled Berserk does get you some extra damage because of Fueled Berserk's burn, and it does lead to an interesting amount of control. I would say this probably falls just a little under Wind Slash, if I'm being honest. Just having that extra speed and 360-degree control is really impressive. And I think it's definitely worth saying, even though there are probably better standard combos that would work well off of Air Spinner. Air Spinner in and of itself is kind of already the control, so what Fueled Berserk would do, it would just turn it into the offense, turn it essentially up to the offense. It just turns up the heat on Air Spinner, which is what Fueled Berserk should do, is it should turn up the heat on any given arcana. So hopefully that makes sense for everybody. And now we move on. We are now up to the earth elements, and our first look comes from Obsidian Splitter, which is a move that is well known for its power. And look at that, one charge combo net to about 70 damage. Just the base 2 swing hits in a nice circle around you and does 30. Now, granted, you're getting more than that from a full combo of Air Spinner, but it's not bad considering that this is a move designed to use that charged mechanic. Like, when it comes to Obsidian Splitter, let's just be fair, just about all roads lead to that charge attack. Which means that it's definitely best paired with a control so you can put all of that power to good use. So what happens if instead of using a control, you use Fueled Berserk? Yeah, I'm just gonna say it, this one's pretty underwhelming. Like, this is one where you should definitely be pairing something else with it instead of Fueled Berserk. Like, you get decent mobility, but as you can see, the knockback ends up causing you to miss hits even when you're just Berserker charging down your target. And yeah, the damage is okay, but it's also inconsistent. And keep in mind, while you're Berserker charging around the battlefield, you can still be snuck up on. I mean, Berserkers aren't exactly known to be the most sneaky of people. Like, the damage is decent, but when you're using Fueled Berserk, like especially up against a boss, you want more consistency than you want to be able to be consistent. Now, you can use this against a boss just fine, because they're not going to recoil much. So let's step outside and see how that works. The answer is not so good. Do it one more time. This time we're going to... Alright, Alright, so the problem is I'm not seeing the damage. $161. Yeah, you're just not getting enough for the investment with Obsidian Splitter and Fueled Berserk. This is one where I say you're much better off just taking Obsidian Splitter by itself, pairing it with a decent control, and using it that way. So I would say this is even more disappointing than Bouncing Blaze. Like, this is one where I would say even the flexibility of having full-on Berserker Rage combined with being able to use the charge just isn't worth it. Just pick up the Chrono Glove, stick with the charge, and use something else that will make it better. This is not a good combo for Fueled Berserk, and I wouldn't recommend trying it. Next up on our list, we've got Bladed Vine. Bladed Vine is one of those that I kind of praised for being good to use with the Dark Katana, and that's just because it's got a nice sweeping range, and that last hit actually hits a lot further away than it looks like for 3 hits. So its base damage is 41, and you can imagine that easily going up when you start factoring in critical hits and maybe a damage upgrade or two. So what happens when you use Fueled Berserk? So did you notice something odd there about using this with Fueled Berserk? Because I know I sure did. So part of the problem is that this even though Fueled Berserk's whole thing is that it removes frame delays from your combos, this one still has it. It's hard to notice, but it's definitely there. Now, that doesn't mean that the damage potential isn't high, but let's also keep in mind what that means for when you're using it. Now, up against bosses, that higher damage potential is nice, but that weird frame delay between the last hit and what would be considered the first hit of the combo just makes it feel so awkward to use. And you can see it happening, because even though I'm pressing into the enemy, like, you'll notice that there are times where I just stop moving. And that's what that frame delay is all about, and that's what I ended up not liking about this. Now, again, the damage is nice, don't get me wrong. You get a lot of damage. But in order to get the full damage off on one target, you have to start off pretty much right next to them. That having been said, let's see if it fares better against bosses. Because with bosses, you essentially only have one target. Alright, so you're getting up into the 300 range. It's actually not bad. Now, this is one where you can get easily tunnel vision, though. But there is potential here. So, the frame delay and the poor movement for a melee one is kinda bad. But the damage potential is high, and you will synergize well with it with the Dark Katana. I will put it in B tier above Severing Slash, with the proviso that in large mobs, like, I was using it with the Retro Floor Plan when I tried it out, and that little frame delay in your movement and in between the last hit of a 3-hit combo and the first hit of the next one does create some awkward timings where your enemies can get in there and mess you up. So the potential is high, the reality is that you're probably getting kind of beat up using it. Which is why I put it in B and not any higher. I like Bladed Vine, but I personally think that I would rather use it with something else. But it's worth trying. It's worth trying for the high damage potential. Next on the list, we have Stone Shot. Now, I'm holding onto the Idealist Mirror, so you're seeing Stone Shot enhanced. But yeah, base combo at range is... well, it's not supposed to be 51. 47, which, again, pretty good. We were seeing similar numbers with Bladed Vine. So, adding on Fueled Berserk. So, you can already see the big problem, which is that Stone Shot's knockback does make it hard to combo against regular enemies. And what little movement you get while using it just doesn't make up for that. Like, Stone Shot is a move that I really like, but I really think it's better being used kind of by itself without Fueled Berserk. But let's see what happens when we go Fueled Berserk against this boss dummy. I did not see the damage because I'm a dummy. I still didn't see it. You'll have to forgive me, apparently I'm blind. Okay, so this combo is hitting in the 400 range against a stun boss. Now you probably won't get all of that on a level 2 or 3 boss because they don't stay stunned as long, but the damage potential against bosses is high. Use case against mooks, not so much. So again, you kind of have to weigh risk versus reward when you're taking this one. Do you want to take the chance at using a suboptimal offense when you could be using another standard there to help improve your chances? Or are you willing to take that risk for the high damage against bosses? I guess that's entirely up to you. For me, I say this hits above the Bladed Vine range, but because of that weird thing where it's really good against bosses, but the combo isn't so great against just regular enemies, I'm saying that I'm putting it in that... I'm going to put it above Bladed Vine for the damage potential, but below Flame Strike for the lack of versatility. Like, it actually will make going through the regular run, especially if you do it like I do with Retro Floor Plan a lot of the time, it's going to make it harder because you're going to have less control, especially since the rocks only hit one enemy at a time and they don't push through. Like, that's one thing that I will say for Bouncing Blaze, is that even though I'm a little disappointed by how it works against or how the combo works against regular old mooks, it does still have the piercing effect when you... Nope, that's not Bouncing Blaze. It does still have the piercing effect even when you're Fueled Berserking it up. So what you can do is control an entire team of enemies and kind of guide them into the wall and just explode their faces. So that is one thing you can effectively do, but you can also do that without Fueled Berserk. So I still say that it's a waste to use Fueled Berserk with Bouncing Blaze, but there's a use case for it here. It's really good against bosses, not so much against regular enemies. So that's my take on Stone Shot. I still really like it. I just don't think Fueled Berserk is the right combo piece. Next up, we have Earth Knuckle. Now, by itself, Earth Knuckle was really underwhelming to me. Like, I also flat out said, if you're going to use Earth Knuckle, like, by itself, don't upgrade it, because the frame delay between each single hit was enough that it kind of brought the whole idea of using it down. Like, this is one where by itself, you're not getting very far. At least to me, you're not. Though I won't deny the kind of visceral idea of impacting an enemy with a big fist made out of rock. It is cool looking, but just not very effective in practice. On the other hand, and this is probably the reason why Fueled Berserk is such a popular target when using Earth Knuckle, you're now attacking a lot faster and removing a lot of those frame delays. So what happens is you get a very, very damaging combo. Like, we were hitting close to 500 there against a regular Mook, and because you have a decent amount of movement between hits, you can follow those Mooks. And against bosses, you're still hitting 382, which is really nice. And that's before any sort of damage increase. That time we hit 376, because I wasn't necessarily super consistent with the combo. There you go, 423 against a boss. And then against regular enemies, you get just jolts of movement that allow you to kind of dance around, and you can get creative with that to scoop up more enemies in your hits. You can use that to dance around enemy attacks while still throwing out punches Muhammad Ali style. Like, the Earth Knuckle may be one of the worst by itself, but when you pair it with Fueled Berserk, it instantly jumps up to being one of the best. And yeah, that's not a mistake. It jumped that far just by having Fueled Berserk added on top of it. So yeah, there was a part of me when I was doing this, and you guys may remember, that I was trying to avoid doing it because one of the big reasons why I wanted to use Fueled Berserk and do all of the arcanas, because I was thinking, there's no way with how awful Earth Knuckle is that is the best target bar none for Fueled Berserk. I do think there is at least one that's better, but yeah, there's a reason why this is a popular choice. So all you crazy berserkers that want to go out there and Mike Tyson your enemies down, fucking go for it. It is as good as people say it is, and I feel like I never should have doubted the believers. It's good. It's really good. Alright, we're up to Volt Disc now, and the electric element in general. Volt Disc is one of those that I have kind of a love-hate relationship with. Like, I don't like how it's basically just a low-tier bouncing blaze to me, but I know a lot of people say it's really... say the projectile velocity makes up for any shortcomings in PvP matches. You're probably right. I can see this working well in PvP, but... yeah, I'm just not a big fan of it for my own personal use. So the combo is 3 hits, hitting at 9 apiece for 27 damage. And that is, of course, enhanced because I'm holding the Idealist here. So what happens when you use Fueled Berserk with it? Well, not much. So let's try it kind of moving when we get out of range. Yeah, very underwhelming. Now, we can, of course, throw that out in a group, but the problem is it only ever hits 2 targets. It only ricochets once. And if we take it out against the boss, we can just spam all the hits into it in one combo. Yeah, this is one where I say it's just not worth it. Volt Disc, some people may really like it. I personally am kind of about it. But using Fueled Berserk with it just is not worth it. So I would put it down here in the D class. And because for some reason Tier Maker doesn't like my Volt Disc picture, I'm just going to do that. So sorry Volt Disc, you end up getting the raw end of the stick on this one. You might be good in PvP, but the way I play the game, you are just trash. That having been said, one thing that I was invited to do, and I'm just doing this as a tangent, so I'll talk about this while I'm switching up to the next Arcana, is I was invited to look over some PvP footage and do some commentary on it, because I guess I'm really good at Wizard of Legend. I don't know, some people may disagree with that. The only reason why I haven't started doing that is just because I got so inundated with work at the post office, but now that I have a job that allows me more free time, I might actually be able to do that, so if y'all are still interested, hit me up. Sorry for that little tangent, we now move on. We move on to Radiant Blast. This is another charge one that I particularly rather like. So your base damage for the base 3-hit is 31. But when you're using the charge, it goes up to 56. It's just an order of magnitude greater. It's like, oh my god! So obviously, this is one where you want to focus on using those charge hits to really stick it to a group of enemies. So you're probably going to want to run this with the Chrono Glove and maybe with a couple of Arcana to control and act as a big heavy hitter. But what happens when you use it with Fueled Berserk? So your damage potential is pretty decent, especially since you're probably damaging in a way that allows the Fueled Berserk explosion to go off. But you're not guaranteed that last charge, so your mileage could very much vary. I didn't think that one through very much, I'm sorry. Now once again, it's nice that you have the versatility of doing the quick 3-tap, the big burst, or just going nuts. And you get an okay amount of movement with it. But would I say that it's really worth using? Let's try it out against that boss. I'm personally going to say that this is one that falls into the C grade. Like, it's not absolutely abhorrent, but you're definitely better off choosing something else. Like, I would put it probably above these two for sure, but I don't think it gets any higher than that. As much as I like Radiant Blast, and again, it's just kind of a bias thing because I really like Arc Sphere, I just don't see a good use case for this with Fueled Berserk. By itself, you can pair it with other things that make the idea of using Radiant Blast in and of itself a lot better. But would I put it anywhere above C with Fueled Berserk? Sorry, not a chance. Ugh. I might have stomach problems. And we're back with Bolt Rail. This is one of the ones that I put very high up in the tier ranking by itself. That's because it's quick, it's consistent, it scores a lot of hits. There's very few negative things to say about Bolt Rail aside from its narrow hit zone, but it pierces enemies, and it does so with greater gusto than Perforating Jet, oddly enough, even though it seems like Perforating Jet should be getting more damage. So since we know that, we can now ask ourselves, how well does it work with Fueled Berserk? I'd say pretty well. Now, you can't move while you're using it, which, yeah, that is a decent point against it, but when you're getting that much damage against bosses with very little chance for them to break out of it, yeah, and this is the first one that was able to hit a 500 range. Yeah, so in comparison to what you're getting with Earth Knuckle, you get a little bit less sweeping range, and you get less movement, like a lot less movement. On the other hand, its damage potential is ridiculous, and you would be a fool not to recognize that. Like, this thing melts bosses like nobody's business. So, even though it goes below Earth Knuckle, I still say it belongs up in S tier. Like, I don't know what the guys over at C99 were thinking when they were like, "Hey, let's make this arcana so that it does great damage at high speed and can pierce through enemies." Bolt Rail is just the gift that keeps on giving, and I think what balances it out is that in PvP you can do better with greater range, but its damage is frankly unmatched. And it's really good with critical hit builds, even if you can't use Dark Katana with it. There's just so little negative things you can say about Bolt Rail. It's just, as far as I'm concerned, one of the basic Arcana kings. And this is now the second tier list in a row where it hits an S grade. So I wonder what'll happen when we pair it with another buff Arcana. We'll just have to see. Alright, last up for the electric element is Spark Contact. Now, Spark Contact already does pretty impressive damage, and because it's melee, it works very well with Dark Katana. Now, the obvious caveat here is that it's very short range. Like, there's medium range, then there's short range, and then there's what I like to call asshole range. Like, the range where you basically need to be up inside the enemy's asshole to hit them with. Now, if you're going to use this with Fueled Berserk, you need to come in here with another form of control. Like, you need Spark Array, you need Frost Fan, you need something that's going to hold your enemy back when you're using it. But what do you get when you are using Fueled Berserk? So, against regular mooks, that's not a big selling point. Obviously, your knockback is pushing them away from your combo, and that's not good. But let's try it out against this boss. So, you see why I recommend this? Like, this is even more damage than Bolt Rail, and I already called Bolt Rail a king, a giant amongst men, so to speak. So this may kind of falter against mooks a little bit, but this destroys bosses. And this is hitting even harder this has the potential to hit even harder than Earth Knuckles. Earth Knuckles is obviously better against mooks, but I would say that Spark Contact is just the damage king, bar none. And plus, you still get at least a little bit of mobility while you're using it. So to me, there's no question that goes there. That doesn't mean that Earth Knuckles has been dethroned, because Earth Knuckles, of the 3 S tiers, definitely hits with the most consistency. But I think it's hard to deny that the other two would make a run for its money, and they definitely have greater damage outputs. So, as far as Fueled Berserk goes, I would say we've pretty much already hit the top. Have we hit the bottom yet? We found 2 that hit the bottom. Let's see how the rest go. And we're back, and we have Riptide. Now, I didn't have a lot of nice things to say about Riptide. By itself, I felt that it was very underwhelming. It's just one of those single tap combos that I can't get behind. Now, when you pair it up with Fueled Berserk, not a lot changes. You just do everything that Riptide does a little bit faster. Now, when you're rapid casting, you can't move. And your damage is a little underwhelming. But you can make it work. Let's try it out against that boss dummy and see if we can't get any better numbers. The numbers are okay. Obviously, we've seen better, and we saw better even out of things that weren't hitting A tier. Or S tier, I mean. But again, that was never really the design of Riptide. Riptide was essentially meant to be a shield, as it's really good at blocking enemy projectiles and pushing enemies away from you to give you a moment. Riptide is meant to be defensive in nature, and I don't think Fueled Berserk does enough to change that. You're best paired with some form of greater control or a nice heavy hitter. With Fueled Berserk, Riptide just doesn't do enough to be interesting to me. That having been said, I still think it's better than Perforating Jet. Sorry, Perforating Jet, I'm sorry. You've burned me too many times. I don't know how you expect me to continue this relationship. It's toxic. Yeah, that's Riptide. It's a thing. It's a thing. Alright, up next is Frostblades. This is an arcana that I really like, and it's not just for the idea that you're dual-wielding swords, or in this case, quad-wielding. Yeah, Roronoa, Zoro, eat your heart out. But that's not necessarily what we came here to look at. We already know how effective its charge slash is. But how good is it when we're using the Fueled Berserk? Well, first of all, you've got really good mobility. Second of all, you're getting in range where you can actually use the explosive part of Fueled Berserk. So this is one where it's not going to do great against bosses, but this is actually a weirdly good control when it comes to regular enemies. Yeah, damage 188 on that combo, not great. But because of its wide range, it's really good against regular enemies. Like, this is really good for sweeping up enemies, and the mobility while you're fast swinging is actually really nice. So it's got very good use cases against enemies, but is awful against bosses. So where do we put something like that? Well, I'm gonna say that it goes pretty much at the top of the B tier, because I think these have greater potential. This has just a strong use case. Do I think that you'd be better off with something else in place of Fueled Berserk? I mean, yeah, probably. Things like Radiant Knockout, or even just pairing it with like an explosive fireball or something like that will probably net you greater returns in the long run. But I do think Fueled Berserk is fun with Frostblades and is something you should try out at least once, just to see whether or not you think you had a good time with it. But as far as like raw results and damage numbers, you can do better. Alright, next on the list, we're looking at Aqua Arc. And that is an arcana that I've labeled as the best arcana that you're not using. And part of the reason for that is it's got this sweet little like wide damage, kind of semi-wide damage arc, which doesn't save it. you can't hit too far off to your sides, but you have slightly greater range than you think you would. But what really makes it shine is that burst of ice at the end of the arc, which not only increases its range, but increases its overall damage. And this is, of course, talking about the enhanced version of it. And that makes one combo with all of those ice bursts do about... We're trying to get it without critical hits, but as you can see, we're hitting in the low 50 range, which, you know, very, very good for a basic. There you go, 52. So let's add on Fueled Berserk and see how that works out. Now, obviously, you can see that by the end of the combo, the enemy was getting pushed out of range of the actual like arcs of water, but the Frost Blast was still hitting it, which was making the damage consistent enough to be good against mooks. But now, how does it work against bosses? Yeah, again, the damage is really good against bosses, and very, very good against... I should say that the other way around. It's good against mooks, especially as you can sweep multiple of them up in the arcs and do consistent damage with the ice burst on the enhanced version. Against bosses, they just melt. This is another one where I would say that Fueled Berserk really adds on a lot, because you're getting decent range, consistent damage, and do I really need to argue how much it's doing against the bosses? No, this is one where, as I was using it, I was thinking, yeah, this is pretty low key an A tier. Looking at it again, I might be wrong about that. I didn't see the damage, but yeah, the number of hits was astounding. Yeah, this is one that I underestimated this one when I was using it, and I think, call me crazy, I think this is another S tier. Using it with Fueled Berserk just unlocks a lot of its potential. And seeing the amount of damage it can do with that is absolutely nuts. I say it's definitely worth a try. You would be surprised how much you can get out of Aqua Arc when you use it with this combo. Like, it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of work, and I would say try it at least once. Try it, see if you like it. If you don't like it, no harm, no foul. If you do like it, decide here first. You're welcome. The last Water Arcana we're going to be looking at is Ice Dagger, which I've said a lot about Ice Dagger. Like, this is one where the whole gimmick of it is that it's a basic that lends itself very well to movement shenanigans, and its damage isn't bad. Like, this thing, it has the kind of gradual damage gradual damage increase mechanic. You know, 6, 6, 8, 12, but you can also catch them with the throw, which does an additional 10. So you've got good damage on your hands here. Now, let's add a whole lot of speed to it. Yeah, your single target damage is stupid with Ice Dagger. But the other thing you can do is activate it and then just run around like a crazy psycho. Like, it's hard to get that to work in a retro floor plan run because there's always just a big group of enemies ready to slap you in the face for being arrogant. But there doesn't mean that the potential isn't there, because you could always do something like that. But now let's see how it works against bosses. Yeah, we're once again hitting the 500s range. So, what can I say? You've got another really, really good arcana to use with Fueled Berserk. Like, this one, I won't even hide my thoughts on it. This is an S grade. Like, there's more that works out well with Fueled Berserk than works out poorly this time around, and I'm happy to say that. And yes, I think it's better than Bolt Rail just because you have so many options. You can ram into one enemy and burst them down. You can dance around like a crazy psycho. You're using it fast enough that you can use the Dagger throw off of the enhanced version to knock enemies off of ledges. And yeah, you can do that without Fueled Berserk, but with Fueled Berserk, you're now launching them fast enough that it's a really consistent source of damage and knockback. I just have very few bad things to say about it. You know what? Might actually be better than that. I know. The whole reason why people like Fueled Berserk has now been outshone by 2 other arcana. What's next? You're gonna tell me that water is red and the sun is purple? But yeah, what can I say? It's really good. I might have had a hard time with it, but the potential is there, and I think you would be a fool to ignore it. So someone out there, get really good with Ice Dagger plus Fueled Berserk and show us how crazy that build can be. I want to see it. I want to see the crazy Stabby McStabberton build go nuts. Oops. What do I think I'm doing? I'm going nuts. I'm going Stabby McStabberton. That's what I'm doing. No, seriously, someone try it. Try it out. Let me know what you think of it. It's so much fun. Alright, we are up to our last 3, and I'm just going to go ahead and remake this disclaimer. I accidentally put the wrong image up there for Chaos Crush. I accidentally put up the picture for Chaotic Buster. I apologize. I ended up having to locate all of them twice, and I made a mistake. But that's not going to alter my review of Chaos Crush plus Fueled Berserk. So let's get started. Fueled Berserk is not good. You even English, bro? Chaos Crush is something that I praised for its versatility, as it is both melee and missile. You can use both Gloves of Gambit and Dark Katana with this and get amazing results. It's not the only arcana that counts as both melee and basic. Or not, I mean melee and missile. But it's one of the premier examples because it's a basic. So how well does that stack up with Fueled Berserk? Well, it's hard to keep up with the knockback, so your damage mileage may vary. But it's not bad. You're definitely getting your meal ticket out of being able to handle mooks both at range and in your face. How well does it work against this boss dungeon? About 368. It's definitely not bad. That having been said, I do think you have better choices. Like, I think you get more damage out of both Air Spinner and Wind Slash. Now, that doesn't mean that it's worth ignoring. Far from it. I think the versatility and the builds that you can make with it are really good. I'm just not entirely convinced that Fueled Berserk is the right avenue for those builds. So let's take our fake Chaos Crush and we're gonna put it here. I don't think it's awful, but you are getting into you're very much into the realms of there are things that work better with it. And I think you would be a fool to not realize that and try something else before Fueled Berserk. But again, it's fun. Probably worth trying at least once. Alright, next on the Chaos list, we've got Phantom Division, the one that I swore that I was going to get wrong. But somehow I got Chaos Crush wrong. So I just flat out said that I feel like this is probably the worst basic arcana in the game, at least as it stands for PvE. I've been told that this has been banned in a lot of PvP circles. I can kind of see that because of the interesting mid-range of the rogues dashing, and the idea that you get two of them, because in PvP, just keeping your enemy on their toes is probably more important than just straight 100% damage output. But, I mean, I'll figure that out for myself in the near future. So, with that having been said, what do you get out of it when you use it with Fueled Berserk? Well, strangely, you have to contend with the idea that you have an odd amount of knockback. So, get a little bit closer. There you go, it's a little better. 321, not bad. Will we get anything greater against a boss? $385. So you're hitting at about the range that I would call decent with Fueled Berserk. I mean, the damage is still gonna melt most things pretty quickly, but again, I think you can do a lot better with it. So, I mean, it's not the worst one in the game anymore, I'll tell you that much. But again, you can really do a lot better than Phantom. I think its damage potential still keeps it in the B tier, but its other limitations kind of keep it from going too much higher, especially since without Fueled Berserk, it's, in my opinion, still the worst basic in the game. So, but I mean, it's not the worst anymore. You know, Obsidian Splitter took that oddly eggy fart-smelling crown. So, congratulations, Phantom Division, you're not awful. That just leaves us with one more. Alright, last up on the list, we have Chaos Reaper. The one that so many of us like because, let's face it, the scythe, as impractical of a weapon of combat as it is, looks so damn cool. And it doesn't mean that it can't be used as a combative weapon, but this is also not the time to go into the history of the sickle. No, what you've got here is a... So what we've got here is a wonderful tool for its charge attack alone. And it's got movement, it's got a gravity well, so, you know, a lovely status effect, it does a good number of hits, the damage is great. Like, this is one that I easily put up there as one of the S-tiered basics by itself. So how does an S-tier basic by itself work with this? I mean, we've already seen that some of the S-tier basics just stay where they are. Some, not so great. What happens with this one? So that's likely how a combo is going to end, and its damage is respectable at a lovely 436. There you go, and that's what it hits without that. Or without the charged hit at the end, because that's not guaranteed to go off in a crowd of enemies. Well, let's try it out against this boss. Alright, so the hit stun wears off before you get to the charged hit on this. And it leaves you at about the, what is that, 336 or 386? Well, that one, so it's probably 336. This one is definitely better off just being used by itself. Like, I can't really tell you that it's a super disappointment. I'm glad I tried it out, and it's really good against just waves of mooks, but it's really underwhelming against bosses, and a boss, especially a level 2 or 3 boss, will break out of their hit stun and hit you before you can do much else. So this one, I think, falls into the high C. Like, you can strangely get a little bit more with consistency out of Phantom Division than you can out of Chaos Reaper. But remember, that's when using Fueled Berserk. Every other time, those rolls are completely different. And that's the tier list. So as you can see, some things didn't move around very much. Other things got a huge power boost by having their, essentially, frame delay removed and their speed super boosted. So, what do you think? Do you agree with my ratings? Do you disagree with them? Do you just want to say something weird like, I liked it when you said rotten egg smelly fart? Whatever the situation may be, give me a comment. Let me know what you think. And of course, I thank you for tuning in and spending some of your free time with me. I know this is a long video. I don't often go into the territory of making videos this long, so if you got all the way through it, congratulations, kudos to you, and I very much appreciate it. Let's have a nice clean discussion about what we think of the Fueled Berserk combos, and I will be seeing you in the next one. My name is Dark Sage Walker, and I will be seeing you.